All right. Undersecretary Crane, you are good to go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and happy birthday. This is a webinar to celebrate the second anniversary, the second birthday of the Office of Infrastructure. My name is David Crane. I have the honor of being the Undersecretary for Infrastructure here at the Department of Energy, and I just couldn't be more excited to be here today. In fact, my only regret in being here today is that I haven't actually been here for the whole 2 years of this undersecretariat, but my main role here is to hand it over to Dr. Kathleen Hogan, who has been and who is a founding quote unquote father of this organization. So let me just give a little background to get us going here. Obviously, we all know that the history of the Department of Energy is on the R&D side, and that after the bipartisan infrastructure law was passed, that extended the reach of the department into the demonstration deployment. So that's why we exist. That bill itself, when complemented by the Inflation Reduction Act, to me, and not to bring religion into this, but it's almost like a sacred mission we have on the benefit of humanity, a tremendous responsibility that was put upon us to deploy these taxpayer funds in a proper way. And I'm very pleased to say I think we're right on track. We were given more than $90 billion for grants and rebates, $400 billion in loan authority, and over 90 unique programs to administer these dollars and to across a range of clean energy technologies to bring about the clean energy transition and to benefit all Americans, all communities, and that's what we're doing. So we're going to hear today from many of the program office directors about what they're doing specifically in their area, what they're excited about. But I'm just excited about the overall progress we've made, how we've captured the attention of the private sector, because as we all know, we're here to enable private sector leadership in this area, and very importantly, to do this in a way that doesn't leave any communities behind. The community benefit programs that we're doing as part of all our programs are as important to our success as the carbon goals, and because if we don't do it the right way, then we won't get it done. But overall, we're going to lower energy costs for Americans, we're going to improve energy security, and we're going to strengthen U.S. position in leading the world in the energy projects of the future. So where are we as we look at 2024? We have more than $40 billion in announced program selections already announced. I think we have another 20 to 30 billion that'll be announced in the next 6 months. A lot of the programs we already have moved into the negotiation phase so that we can get to award. And so this is a critical year for us in terms of delivering impact across these programs. And it's the year where we transition from selecting our partners to working with our awardees, with investors, and with industry leaders to ensure that the clean energy economy takes hold, is replicable, and leads to commercial liftoff across all these technologies. So as we think about this year, let's just think impact, 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 and let us supercharge the clean energy economy. So before I turn it over to Dr. Hogan, I just want to thank you all for being part of the team, to be dedicated to this mission, to keep the singular focus that we all have on achieving the results, and to be part of implementing President Biden's Invest in America agenda, because this is the only way that we're going to achieve the transition to the clean energy economy. My final thing to say is it's a tremendous honor for me to work with each of you, because it's not just the result, but it's the people that you get there with. And I think we've assembled over this year such a tremendous staff across the Department of Infrastructure. Several hundred of us, many of us new, many of us relocated from other parts of the department or the federal government, everyone working together seamlessly. And so I'm just very proud, very honored to be part of the team. And with that, I'll turn it to my esteemed colleague and Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Infrastructure, Dr. Kathleen Hogan. Kathleen?
Well, thank you, Undersecretary Crane, really for those grounding and inspiring words. As David just said, I am Kathleen Hogan. I am the Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Infrastructure here at the department, and I will be taking you through much of today's presentation. And I really do want to start here by just sharing a bit about how we're going to navigate this webinar. We would like to start with a little bit of background on the Office of Infrastructure, its unique position and role, with the implementation of this historic infrastructure funding that came with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. This office was created really for this new era at DOE, and really with all the capabilities necessary to drive this impact that we're all looking for, this impact in clean energy demonstration and deployment. And I'll share what it means for the department and for the clean energy transition. Next, you'll hear about some of the really tremendous progress we've been making on a number of our clean energy priorities over the first 2 years here, and how we're on track to delivering on this mission. And really, as our secretary likes to say, to deploy, 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 so we really do get to the jobs and benefits across the country that are there. And then third, we're going to hear from a few of our office leaders. They're going to drill down on some program specifics so they can highlight, as David said, what they're excited about and talk about program projects and at that community level that's so important. I will note we only have time for a few offices here today, but we will be looking for opportunities to share more in the coming months. And then we'll close with what's next for the Office of Infrastructure and how we can all stay in touch. So who is this Office of Infrastructure as we move to our next slide here? Yeah, as you know by now, as we've said it, today is the 2nd year anniversary of the launch of DOE's new Office of Infrastructure. On this day in 2022, actually, White House Infrastructure Implementation Coordinator Mitch Landrieu fittingly said of this office, over the next decade, it will allow for a more effective implementation of new programs and will allow the agency to be a better and more effective partner to states, communities, and the private sector. And it's that partnership that really is the cornerstone of everything we do as we usher in this affordable, reliable, resilient, secure, and equitable clean energy transition. So you can see that the office is made up of 8 program offices and DOE's longstanding power marketing administrations, and that this new office is well on its way to stewarding the historic funding of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. Each office, as you can see, has a very critical mission here in partnering with important parts of our energy economy on particular energy priorities and really with relevant co-investors. And each office is playing its role to up its game across the Department of Energy as we pursue this really important work to accelerate technology to people, each office bringing new capabilities at new levels to the table. So what are these new levels of capabilities? Just to set the stage a little, the Office of Infrastructure, this new office, sits on the shoulders of R&D giants here at the department, drawing on years of technical innovation and technologies, moving across the technology readiness spectrum. And this office puts that innovation to work in ways that we really have not done before. And just to call out a few of these new ways, these new capabilities that the Office of Infrastructure is bringing forward, it's bringing forward integral expertise to all its partnerships and projects, really going beyond technology maturity to what is necessary to turn billions into trillions and benefits to our communities. So that's expertise on project financeability and replicability, strategies to navigate commercialization's valley of death, issues around and tools around market demand, market formation, finance matching, addressing supply chain gaps and issues, mapping out pathways to deliver community benefits, and really being able to lean in on large-scale project management so we can get to scale and long-term impact. So again, building on the shoulders of amazing R&D accomplishments, new capabilities to really deliver real and widespread domestic impact, and you will hear more about that from our programs. So as we move beyond sort of the boxology of the office, what we really want to also share is how we're shepherding today's historic resources and these capabilities really to drive impact. So we are working to expand affordable clean energy for all, so people have access to cheaper, cleaner, safer, and more reliable energy. We're working across the board to renew American manufacturing, to secure clean energy supply chains and put clean energy to work. And throughout all of this, we are working to create jobs and deliver community benefits by meeting communities where they are and working in strong partnership with many of our state, local, and tribal government partners for this transition. And very critically, we are working to catalyze the private sector to get the maximum benefits for the federal dollar. As we know, the clean energy transition will be private sector led and government enabled. And this is really what we need to do to turn the billions into trillions and get even greater benefits across the country. So, as we move to the next slide, the work that is underway is, of course, because of the historic legislation passed in 2021 and 22. And at DOE, this does total $90 billion plus in overall funding and over $400 billion in loan authorities across about 90 programs. And these investments spur economy-wide critical projects, helping our industries improve competitiveness, helping us modernize our energy systems, helping us improve the nation's buildings, secure supply chains, and again, ensure these solutions reach communities far and wide. So to date, we have made tremendous progress. All of these programs have been launched. More than $80 billion has been made available through competitive or other funding mechanisms, and more than 56 of these programs have announced selections for award negotiation, representing over $40 billion in federal investment. And we are pleased to report that we also have $63 billion in private sector match for a total of more than $100 billion in investments. And these dollars are flowing to all 50 states and the territories, and will provide broad benefits as we work on these projects and ensure that the benefits flow as much as possible to the disadvantaged communities nationwide. To date, projects selected for negotiation span technologies and scale from battery manufacturing and recycling grants to regional hydrogen hubs, tribal energy projects, K-12 school energy grants, and the largest ever direct investment in grid infrastructure. We do anticipate that all the remaining funds will be released by the end of 2024, and that the total investment numbers will grow substantially across the board. So as we look to the next slide, and we also are really being thoughtful about the work ahead. And we want to put this in a little bit of perspective, sort of what we've been able to accomplish on the, in our first 2 years. This is a nice point on our second year anniversary to look back, but also to look ahead, because so much of the work that we are doing together in partnership is the work we have ahead of us to really deliver on the impact that we all want. So as we just discussed, the Office of Infrastructure does work largely through applications and selections of meritorious projects, working through to final awards, and then really working hand in hand on project management for impact. And as our mission doubles down on long-term project viability and replicability, so that we can get even greater investment and greater benefits throughout. So I think there is a fitting analogy here as we think through what we've accomplished in the first 2 years and what's ahead. And really, it's one of a boat sort of leaving the harbor as we start a very substantial journey. And as we stand here after the first 2 years, you know, our boat with its many public and private sector project partners has really just left the harbor. And the work that we do here will be to effectively navigate the waters of commercialization and liftoff so that we can ensure project success and really get the greatest impact to communities across the country. So we are at a point here transitioning into this next phase of work, which will take the fullness of the next 10 years or so as we work to replicate and really pull in and leverage private sector investment. You know, we're excited. We have the teams in place which integrate the knowledge, the expertise across career public servants, as well as experts from the private sector. We're building commercialization tools, fostering these partnerships with leaders across government and industry, and really managing for liftoff, replicability, risk management, and impact. So with that, let's just briefly look at where some of the funding announced to date is going. The areas where these partnerships and projects are being established and where the growing benefits will unfold. So we are working to build that better grid. Some of our top line numbers are that we've announced over $13 billion in federal grid funding, and we've selected more than 60 projects across 52 states. And again, this work is representing the largest ever direct investment in critical grid infrastructure. We've also announced over $13 billion in funding to upgrade the nation's buildings and lower energy costs in those buildings. And that includes over $180 million for K-12 schools in need of modernization, over $3 billion to retrofit thousands of low-income homes to make them healthier as well as reduce their costs, and $8.8 billion for home energy rebates. And as we look at all this funding, we anticipate we will be helping more than 1.5 million American families reduce their energy bills, most of these households being low or moderate income family households. As we look at our U.S. Supply chains, we've announced $9.8 billion to revitalize our manufacturing base with investments in manufacturing capacity and workforce development. The investments here fund more than 60 projects across 33 states across the battery supply chain and new heat pump manufacturing capacity. So just a lot moving through our system. As we go on to the next slide, a couple additional things to call out. You know, major investments to advance our industrial competitiveness and reduce emissions across our U.S. industrial sector. And where we'll be looking to provide new solutions, innovative solutions, and create jobs. I also want to call out some of the efforts that are specifically directed to underserved communities, whether they're energy communities where there's an energy-related asset that has shut down, or tribal communities, tribal nations, or rural and remote communities. There's direct funding going to support projects there, though we also know that many of the investments I've already spoken to will be flowing to stand-up projects in disadvantaged communities or underserved communities as well. And we have some specific efforts that we are advancing to build out high-quality jobs and accessible careers, $200 million at this point to fund programs building that workforce. So again, very exciting things that are underway. So I hope I've been able to convey a little bit of the tremendous progress we have made, as well as what is still ahead for the work along this journey and with this office. And I really want to now turn to a few of our program offices so you can hear directly about how they're driving impact, playing their role to turn billions into trillions, and to really make a difference for everyday Americans. So with that, I would love to turn it over to our first office leader here, and that is Kelly Cummins, the director of our Clean Energy Demonstrations program. Kelly.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hogan, and hello to all of our participants. My name is Kelly Cummins, and I'm the Acting Director for the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, otherwise known as OCED. I'm excited to speak with you for a few minutes about how our clean energy demonstration projects are helping to build out a new vision for our nation's energy infrastructure. Our mission at OCED is to deliver clean energy demonstration projects at scale in partnership with the private sector to accelerate the deployment, market adoption, and the equitable transition to a decarbonized energy system. OCED is proving the effectiveness of these technologies in real-world conditions at scale to pave the way toward widespread adoption and deployment. To ensure the success of OCED-funded demonstration projects, we're focused on demonstration project management oversight excellence. We're aiming to provide project management oversight in a more efficient and collaborative way. Throughout the life cycle of these projects, we're focused on proactive management. We're committed to providing continuously involved and deeply experienced oversight to resolve issues that arise with our partners quickly and efficiently. Most of our projects are structured with a cost share agreement where OCED will provide up to 50% of the funding. The goal is that OCED will take the early steps to set up these demonstrations, and our industry partners will assist with the steps that lead to commercialization and deployment. Throughout the implementation of these historic federal investments in clean energy infrastructure, a huge part of our strategy is an all-of-government approach to invest in energy solutions. We're excited to have begun implementing our programs through announcing clean energy demonstration projects across the country. From hydrogen hubs to direct air capture projects, we're delivering on this administration's promise to bring real economic opportunity to America through clean energy. At OCED, we're committed to doing things differently to ensure that the benefits of clean energy demonstration projects will flow to impacted communities directly. Our projects all require robust community and labor engagement. And ultimately, these projects will help position America to be a global leader in emerging clean energy industries. You can go to the next slide, please. Today, I want to focus on one of the largest clean energy technology demonstrations we're investing in to date, and that is clean hydrogen. Supported by $8 billion of federal funds from the bipartisan infrastructure law, and combined with private sector funds, we're helping to build out the country's first ever network of clean hydrogen infrastructure, exemplifying the administration's private sector-led, government-enabled strategy. And as you can see from this slide, the regional clean hydrogen hubs are one of several different demonstration projects that are within the OCED scope. So specifically for the clean hydrogen hubs, in October of 2023, we announced 7 regional clean hydrogen hubs to lead the charge in building out our nation's clean hydrogen future. This is the largest investment in clean manufacturing and jobs in American history. The hydrogen hubs will accelerate the commercial scale deployment of clean hydrogen, helping generate clean dispatchable power and creating a new form of energy storage and helping to decarbonize industry and transportation. To enhance the early commercial viability of the hydrogen hubs, as demand formation for new energy sources often lags the creation of a new reliable supply, a key aspect of our strategy is to develop a hydrogen demand side initiative, which is why I'm excited to say that just recently we announced a consortium to help accelerate commercial liftoff of clean hydrogen economy by supporting the launch of the hydrogen hubs. In particular, this consortium will help craft demand-side support agreements for clean hydrogen projects affiliated with the hydrogen hubs to help unlock final investment decisions and catalyze the formation of a mature clean hydrogen market. Ultimately, the demand side initiative will support the growth and sustainability of the hydrogen hubs by providing improved offtake certainty to help hydrogen producers attract private sector investment and end-use buyers. And stay tuned, there's so much more to come, including $6 billion in industrial demonstrations and place-based demonstrations in rural and remote areas. Let me just emphasize, this is such an exciting and important time for my office, OSED, and the Office of Infrastructure, as we work together to build out a clean energy economy that can unlock real opportunity for workers, for communities, and the private sector. We're proud to be part of the extraordinary developments that are unfolding through our clean energy demonstration projects. Thank you so much. With that, I will turn it over to my colleagues in the Grid Deployment Office.
Thank you so much, Kelly. My name is Maria Robinson, and I lead the Grid Deployment Office here at the Department of Energy. And if we can go over to the next slide, that would be great. So the Grid Deployment Office believes that every American, whether you're powering your home, your community, just your phone, wants reliable and resilient power. And the problem is that that infrastructure can be over 100 years old. We're facing increased threats of severe weather events like wildfires, hurricanes, extreme cold or heat, and lack of funding to address those issues leaves communities really vulnerable to outages and high energy prices. That's the challenge that we here at the Grid Deployment Office work on every day. Between Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, we are able to strengthen and modernize the electric grid, mitigate those impacts of extreme weather, and deliver more reliable, affordable electricity across the country. We also work really closely with our private industry partners and leverage that federal funding that we have to catalyze more private sector commitments to improve the overall grid resilience and reliability. So based on the level of interest and demand for these programs, we've really learned how crucial and critical this federal support is to help overcome some of the financial, as well as some of the permitting and infrastructure related barriers to actual deployment. So on the next slide, we have a little bit of information about some of the absolutely historic funding opportunities that we have to address the challenges ahead. To date, we've announced, as previously mentioned, about $13.5 billion of investment in the nation's GRIP, and we're seeing real impact in communities. By the numbers, our signature program of GRIP has done about $3.5 billion for the first round of funding and $8 billion total when combined with private sector commitments. One big highlight from this particular program is so far we've invested in over 400 microgrids that will be able to provide some greater grid resilience and reliability to communities. That overall enables about a 10% increase in renewable energy capacity across our investments here. And about 40% of those are in affected communities. And one thing that we're really proud of is that 75% of these projects have union commitments. In our transmission facilitation program, or TFP, so far, we've awarded $1.3 billion in capacity contracts. We actually have a second round open right this second. So feel free to take that into consideration. And thus far, we're looking to add about 3.5 gigawatts of new transmission capacity across the country. Another highlight here is our state and tribal formula grants, which have provided a significant amount of funding to almost all the states, well over 100 tribes, 3 territories, and of course, Washington, D.C. And what's exciting about that program is the flexibility that allows communities to really address the needs that are specific to them. The next slide just shows a couple of the very large investments that we've made here, either through the Grid Resilience and Innovation Program, including this really neat project out in the Midwest that connects parts of the Southwest Power Pool with the Midwest Interconnection. And that is going to create incredible investment in the grid and allow to strengthen those existing connections. And this was a really innovative project that we were excited to support. Also want to point out on our transmission facilitation program, we're really going all over the country. We have a couple projects here that are significantly impacting both the West as well as the Northeast in order to unlock some clean energy opportunities. as well as some investment opportunities here. And on the last slide, we just want to say that we want to keep working with our private sector friends in order to make sure that we are best using our funds, our resources, the incredible brain power here at the Department of Energy to make sure that we are catalyzing private sector investment for the deployment of more grid and transmission infrastructure, recognizing that that is truly tying together all the other investments that we're making, not just here at the Department of Energy and in the Undersecretary for Infrastructure, but for all the investments that folks are making across the country. And with that, we want to turn it over now to our friends over at the State and Community Energy Programs and want to introduce our dear friend, the Acting Director for SCEP, Keisha Austin. Keisha, over to you.
Thanks, Maria. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you being here today. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about the work that we're doing inside of SCEP. Why don't we go ahead and move to the next slide? We're a new office, really excited that we are going to be able to work with state, local, and tribal governments, nonprofit organizations, schools, and other partners to provide technical assistance and place-based clean energy strategies to catalyze local economic development, create jobs, reduce energy costs, and avoid pollution. So you can look here on the screen about all the money that we have within this particular office and the ways that we look forward to working with many of our partners. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so we have 28 programs coming out of SCEP, and the goal of those 28 programs, or one of the main goals of the 28 programs, is to focus on enhancing capacity for states. And there are several ways that we plan to do that with the funding that we now currently have available. Excuse me. So we have weatherization assistance programs coming out of this office. We have the home energy rebates programs coming out of this office. I should say that the weatherization program, I believe, is at $3.2 billion. The home energy rebates, I believe, is at 8.8. We have the energy efficiency and conservation block grants. We have the state energy program and revolving loan fund, which has been around for a very long time. We have the technical assistance for building energy codes. And then we also have training for residential energy contractors. And these programs and the funding that we're providing here are all critical to enhancing the capacity at the state level, as well as the local level as well. So we look forward to working with folks here to make sure we're getting this money out to the folks that we need to be getting it out to. Why don't we go ahead and move to the next slide? With a vast amount of formula grants and competitive grants and awards that we have available and consumer rebates, I mentioned we also have this great program, the energy efficiency and conservation block grant program. Whew, what a tongue twister there. And so we normally call it EECBG. That is going to target up to 2,700 or more than 2,700 entities, including over 1,800 local governments, right? So we are really getting on the ground in communities to make sure that funding is available to do this place-based energy, clean energy transition work with our partners. And we also have the Community Leap 2.0 program, which we've launched to provide deep technical assistance and road mapping efforts. We also have the Community Energy Fellows program that will also provide on-site capacity to our partners. We know oftentimes our state and local partners do not have the staff on hand to really carry out these programs. And so here we're coming in to try to support them there. As well, we have these blueprint cohorts, and they're in 13 topic areas, which were launched across the country to help local governments and tribes achieve high impact results. And so we're really proud of the work that the office has done this year, and I didn't get a chance to mention, but we have already launched all of our bill and IRA programs in 2023. So 2024 is all about implementation. Next slide, please. And so implementation means that we're going to be working to also enhance capacity, not just at the state level and the local level, but working with our tribal partners as well to make sure that they have what they need as it relates to the home energy rebates program. So for instance, we'll be giving out $225 million for tribes to take up the home energy rebates to help tribal citizens actually transition to cleaner and more efficient technologies within their homes. And so the recipients there will be Indian tribes and Alaska Native corporations. And as I said, the goal here is to develop, implement, and subsidize residential electrification and appliances upgrades for tribal and Alaska Native households. In addition to that 225 million, we also have 9 million for tribes for the EECBG program. And those recipients, as you can see here from this slide, are also tribes and Alaska Native regional and village corporations. And our goal there is to fund these projects to reduce fossil fuel emissions and improve energy efficiency and reduce total energy costs. Next slide, please. And one of the things that we really get excited about here in SCEP is the work that we get to do within communities to help support and build up their infrastructure. And one of the ways that we get to do that is with the Renew America School Grant. We have been able to award over $178 million in grants to 24 local education agencies. And we're going to do more into 2024. And we're really excited to be working with the public schools across the country from the K to 12 age range, or school range, I should say, to make sure that we can support them as they look to modernize and do more energy efficiency improvements, such as HVAC and lighting and retrofits at their schools across the country, bringing cleaner energy into our children's learning environment. Next slide. And so I talked a little bit about how we're working with nonprofits at the beginning of this presentation, and this just gives you a little bit more detail about how we're doing that in working with nonprofits. This is really the first time that DOE has been working directly with nonprofits to reach clean energy goals, or our clean energy goals together. And so, we have selected 9 selectees to receive over $45 million for energy improvements, and that will touch over 300 facilities in 28 states. And we have 2,200 organizations recruited from this teaming list to benefit from this particular project and program. Next slide. And so one of the foundational programs of SCEP is a weatherization assistance program, which has been around for a very long time. And we are so proud to be able to continue to do this work with WEP. And with this WEP funding, we have been able to approve 160 plus grantee states plans. And that was totaling over 912 million in retrofits and readiness funds. We have also awarded 15 CERC projects totaling more than $22 million. And we have also, as it relates to enhancement and innovation, awarded 21 different grantees totaling more than $38 million. So we are continuing to drive innovation in the weatherization program and look forward to continuing to do that as time goes along. And we're really proud in the SCEP office to be able to serve communities and local governments and working with the states as partners to ensure that the good work that we're doing across the S3 vertical is being seen in the states, and that communities and American citizens really get to see how their funds are being spent. So with that, I will wrap it up and I will turn it over to my colleague in MESC to share a little bit about what they're doing there. Becca?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Keisha. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Becca Ward. I'm the Chief of Staff at the Manufacturing and Energy Supply Chains Office, also known as MESC. Since the Inflation Reduction Act became law, we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Since the Inflation Reduction Act became law, the private sector has announced more than $28 billion in investments for clean energy manufacturing. These investments will require strong, secure supply chain. And as we all witness, COVID and geopolitical developments revealed real vulnerabilities and challenges in our existing supply chain. MESC is working to address these constraints in the energy sector, which include limited sources of equipment and materials, limited access to trained workforce, and disruption risks from supply chains that are concentrated in or under the control of actors with potentially adverse interests. And we know these constraints pose major risks, not just to our aspirations for a cleaner, more equitable and sustainable energy system, but to its everyday reliability and to our economy, which increasingly depends on energy. In the next slide, we'll highlight the tools that MESC has to address these challenges, thanks to the bill and IRA. MESC is deploying almost $10 billion in grants and rebates, as well as partnering with the IRS to implement $10 billion in tax credits. While these programs span clean energy supply chains, they focus really on 3 key categories: strengthening U.S. manufacturing. This is for physical infrastructure and for innovating new technology to meet our decarbonization goals and clean energy transition needs. Building the U.S. workforce capabilities. We're building new factories and supply chains that haven't existed in the United States. And this requires us to train up new workforce that will build our infrastructure, that will create new clean energy technology products, and even install these new products like heat pumps. And finally, we are focused on supply chain mapping, modeling, and analysis. MESC is intentional in our investments, and we have created an analytical backbone to drive investments in the supply chain where it's most needed. In the next slide, we'll see the footprints of our investments to date. We are already seeing the impacts of our investments across the country. And what's exciting about this is it's about a 15% down payment. And when all of MESC programs are awarded, the projects you see on your screen will increase by almost an order of magnitude. And many of our programs, including the 48C tax credit, which we're implementing with IRS, will focus investment in energy communities, targeting these investments where we can both strengthen our energy security and resiliency while ensuring economic development and the growth of US jobs. One more slide to highlight the impact of our early investments through just 2 of our programs focused on battery supply chain and workforce. In addition to the stats you see on the screen, almost $20 billion has been committed to community benefit plans, making sure these programs are supported and benefiting the communities housing them. On the next slide, I want to highlight an exciting initiative that MESC is launching to really partner with the private sector. As we've covered, programs through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act are stimulating huge investments in the energy infrastructure across the country. Each of our programs require partnership and cost shares with the private sector. And many of our programs are also heavily oversubscribed with innovative and viable projects. Our broad portfolio of manufacturing programs, including the tax credits that we're working with the IRS to implement, are supporting tens of billions of dollars in manufacturing projects across the country. So we've launched this new initiative called the Manufacturing Capital Connector to facilitate the investment necessary to build out the U.S. manufacturing supply chain. We recently put out a request for information, so encourage you to check that out and to give us our feedback. I would just like to close before I turn it back to Kathleen that through MESC, we have invested $2.8 billion to date in battery and critical minerals. We are on track to create 35,000 jobs, and we are already making our critical mineral supply chain stronger. With the investments we've made so far with MESC and with our office, the Loan Program Office at DOE, for example, domestic lithium production is expected to increase 13-fold by 2030, and domestic graphite production will increase 25-fold. These are critical inputs for our energy sector and our electric vehicle manufacturing. These major investments will help companies scale up clean energy manufacturing and employment here in the US and will incentivize companies to provide workers with family-sustaining careers. That's it for MESC, and I'll turn it back to you, Kathleen.
Well, thank you, Becca, and really thank you to Maria, Kelly, and Keisha for highlighting just a few specific but very important ways for how the Office of Infrastructure and your program offices are enabling this clean energy transition and really driving impact and bringing benefits to communities and people across the country. I hope as you all heard from today's presentation that you can see that the Office of Infrastructure is making a lot of progress. We're on track with the tools we've been given to supercharge the clean energy economy. The boat we talked about has left the harbor. But again, as we all know, there is so much more to do, so much more in front of us to ensure that this journey is a success and really a success for people on the ground. We say again and again that we are here to turn billions into trillions, and we are working at that every day to drive to this clean energy economy with all the jobs and benefits that can come with. So we are laser focused on this. And again, we've got a great team in place to